Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing something really interesting. So I obviously posted my wedding video a couple months back, but Craig is actually one of the guys that helped me shoot my wedding video. And so we're kind of doing, for his company as well as, for this channel, kind of doing a walkthrough of that wedding video and just kind of breaking it down. What were some of the kind of processes of actually shooting it? What about editing? And so we'll break that down a little bit. So let's go ahead and dive in.
Hey guys, what is up? Welcome to a director's cut. I'm Craig, this is Mateo. And we are gonna do our first director's cut together. So this should be fun. We're actually gonna review Mateo and Anya's wedding. So I had the privilege of shooting the wedding, being able to see Mateo do this, and then Mateo got to edit his own wedding and he put a ton of work into that, so he's gonna have a ton to say about it. It's 10 minutes, let's do it.
Great.
Today we get to celebrate God's rich gifts of love and commitment in the lives of Anya and Mateo as they join together in the covenant of marriage. How do you two feel right now? We're here.
One of the things I loved about this wedding that we got to do was we just took like creative angles. We had a couple safety shots in the back, and so the instruction was like, just get the coolest angle you can possibly get and let's just see what happens. And they were so good that we didn't even use the safeties, the cameras in the back, we just used like the really cool creative angles.
Well, it was a good, unique situation. I did this intentionally, obviously being someone that does videography. It was very important to, have a good quality wedding video myself, and I wanted to do something different with it. And so we actually had our whole ceremony live streamed. And so typically something that we shoot for is ceremony coverage. We want to provide a long format ceremony video to the couple so that they can watch the full thing back later on. And so we're kind of having to split between making sure that we get creative angles, but also making sure that we get enough coverage to create a full-length ceremony video that we can cut between out of it. For this, we didn't really have to do that because we already had it live streamed. That was taken care of, and they had, a live switching board and all of that, and it was great. But that enabled Craig and also Marco, who was shooting with Craig, to get all the creative angles that they wanted. Every single angle that they got was able to be handheld, creative, all of that. We didn't use a single tripod, and it looked amazing.
Big breath. Oh, you're shaking. It's okay, you're gonna get through this.
I love starting off with humor, so good.
That was something that was like really important for us for our wedding too, was like, for me and Anya, we're both people that we love to laugh. Like we love to just have a good time, and that was really important to us. So we were like, we want the whole day, just every moment of it, we want to be laughing throughout it. And so that's something that like in the video too, as I was editing it, I was like, I really want that to come through. I want there to be jokes. I want there to just like be a ton of fun and be able to look back like, 20 years in the future, hopefully more than that as well. And just be able to remember just the good times, the laughter, the joy that was a part of that day.
That was such a good like comp of like all the humorous things going on, all the fun things, and like showing the personality.
Yeah. Well, my goal with that is like, typically when we do a VW edit, we're probably in that like, 3 to 6 minute range, right? And so for this video, I knew that I wanted to go a little bit beyond that to tell a little bit more of a story. So I was like, okay, I kind of want it to be in that like 7 to 10, 11 minute range. And it ended up being that 11 minute range. But with that, I was like, okay, so that means that I need to have more than the traditional ebbs and flows that I would typically do. And so I really wanted to start off with something just kind of like exciting. Usually I like to start off with something a little bit more just establishing, a little bit more chill. We're kind of establishing characters first, and that's what I go to initially. But for ours, I just kind of wanted to, because I also wanted it to have a really fun tone, I wanted to kind of lead in strong and have that big kind of section at the beginning where there's like a compilation from the day, and then it's almost like a fake, like a ending, like that could almost be a standalone video on its own, and then we actually go into the real thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we're 53 seconds in, right? So it's still 10 minutes to go, and I already feel like we have a connection. We know you're fun, we know you're like a lot of humor in the...
That might just be because you know me already though.
There's a good shift with the music.
Pretty.
Oh boy. You never talk about me like that anymore.
Well, I mean, we're not married anymore.
Everything. Anya, genuinely, I'm so happy to see you as happy as you are, and Mateo, for you to bring out this happiness in her.
She's a warrior for people she loves, and she has been a warrior for our family. She's been a warrior for her friends and her sister, and now you, Mateo. Through the things that you went through, you
It's so weird to like watch a wedding video that's actually yours. Like when you all you do is make wedding videos, like it's weird to watch them and be like, oh my gosh, I actually like it. It gives like, I feel like watching my own wedding video gives me a new perspective on creating wedding videos, because now like there's certain things that are really important to me in this video that like I wouldn't necessarily think of before I got married. And so I feel like there's like a perspective shift there, and I think that's been something that actually like has made me even better at creating wedding videos now, because I just kind of like feel like I understand a little bit more of like what's important and what's not so important.
I think also one thing you're doing here that was really great is you're like building the character of Anya, so that people immediately like are rooting for her. And you know, it sucks that we have to watch her marry you, but at least we like her at the beginning of the video, so that's a really good start.
family, you lead us in so many ways now with your faith as well, and seeing you two together, the way, you know, Mateo, some people have already mentioned the way that you listen, and the way you guys talk and communicate and share and pray and encourage and all of that. It's so amazing, and you therefore are also leading us in that, and that is such a cool thing to see too.
First look with Daddy. There you go.
Oh,
Nice.
Look at Bjorn, so cute.
Bjorn.
In 2014, I wrote in my diary, I want Mateo to
Hashtag Naomi, shout
for
out.
his heart not to be broken.
If you don't know Naomi, she also works with us, so that's yeah, a lot of VW team showed up on this day.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't want to see my baby brother broken, but I know I can't protect him from everything. The least I can do is try, because I know he would do that and more for me. With you, Anya, I can entrust Mateo's heart. I don't need to protect him, because you're a gift from God.
Oh my gosh. The colors on this red are amazing. Like, look at that. Just the like,
I can entrust
It's red.
I don't need to
I know, but it, like, I just like the fact that like we still have blue in the sky here, like even the brightest parts, like still not blown out. We're in shade and exposed.
He's just talking about his dynamic range.
It's insane. It's so good. Anyway, I digress.
Because you're a gift from God that has brought laughter, joy, healing, and blessing.
Mateo, I've known you for 5 years now, and I'd like to say thank you. You have been there for my sister through thick and thin, and you have helped her so much, and you've made her so unbelievably happy.
You know, Michelle and I are honestly, we were cheering you on.
It was like such a funny moment. You know how like every wedding we've ever done ever, it's like the groomsmen get ready in like 20 minutes and then the bridesmaids get ready in like 5.5 hours. Yeah. So like that was something I was like very conscious of going into like us having wedding. You learn a lot when you shoot weddings. You're like, oh, I know exactly how this is going. So I like literally got one of my friends to bring over like Call of Duty zombies in the morning. Nice. And then we also went out and got coffee. Like we got ready, played like a good amount of rounds of Call of Duty, and then also went out and got coffee and were there still early.
Nice. That's amazing.
So incredibly proud of both of you. Just watching you guys journey over the years, watching you grow in your faith of the Lord, even connecting and planning and praying about this moment right here. We just had so much fun with you guys. Even Michelle and I were just talking about the times we met with you and your support group for the interventions for this moment, you know, just to make sure, do you really want to do this, you know?
Anybody that spent time at our house realizes the thickness of sarcasm that goes around our house, and Tom can verify that if anybody can survive the sarcasm at our place, they can survive anything. So when Anya started to come over, I'm like, okay, oh no, that's it. It's finished. So Mateo started serving the sarcasm, and in it would go. And I'm like, oh, she's gone. She wiggled off the hook. She's gone. But she served it right back, and it's like a ping pong game. I'm like, holy heaven, she's a keeper. I can't believe it. And so their humor's the same, the sarcasm's the same, and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. She's definitely a keeper.
I learned at Mateo's bachelor party this past week that every one of the groomsmen and woman called up Mateo after going through breakups. If you're tempted to grab Ben and Jerry's, Mateo's actually the man to console you when you're feeling like crap. Mateo, you're a generous person who sacrifices for those you love and for causes you believe in. Whether that's how you run your business or how you approach relationships. You take care of people and you're incredibly loyal. Mateo, you have this crazy gift of being able to crack jokes and get people laughing 1 minute and then become genuinely very compassionate, curious, and caring for people the next.
So I guess, yeah, at this point, like from editing, it's weird when you're editing your own video because it's like, usually it's like you're putting in comments about other people. So you're like, oh, it's so cute how they like, you know, built up this person or had this thing to say. And it's like, it's weird when it's like personal and they're talking about you. Yeah. But like basically the point, like leading up at this point, it's like establishing characters, right? We established Anya. We had a lot of different kind of moments and kind of comments about her and who she is and like how she, you know, loves people and just yeah, obviously creating empathy, making sure that people get to know who she is a little bit, and that kind of gets established, and then establishing, you know, my character, which is weird to say, but, you know, obviously I was the groom in this scenario, so establishing that kind of side of it, and then from there we kind of can go into the rest of the video as we start to come together.
Anya, I don't have words to describe how much you mean to me, honestly.
There's like 5 different pronunciations of your wife's name in this video.
Oh, no, she doesn't even know how it's pronounced. It's like one side of the family is like Anya, one's Anya, one's Anya.
Crying, just an absolute mess. And I know words aren't always my strong suit, but you've just loved me so well, and I hope you know what you mean to me. I'm so unbelievably honored to be here with you today, and I've watched you two get married. That's insane and fantastic.
So something I like to do when we have an edit of this length is you have to create natural gaps. Right. And so like, if you think about like, you know, when you hear, you know, TED Talk, or you hear like, if you're a Christian, like a sermon, or even like a song, like you think about it, it's like, if it's the same thing the whole time, it gets boring, right? You have to have sections where energy is low, sections where energy is high, and you also have to have kind of gaps in between there, right? And so like, otherwise it just gets really monotonous. Right. And so something that I always try to do when I'm editing is I try to create these natural gaps, especially with an edit this long, where like this video's, you know, almost 11 minutes. And so people will get bored if it's the same thing the whole time. And so basically what I did here is we drop the music out. We have a little bit of a pause. We kind of have like a break just for people to take a second to kind of like let everything sink in that they just watched before moving on to the next section. Right. And so I kind of have music fade out. I have some like these bird sounds coming in, a little bit of nature just before we pick up again, just to give people a little bit of a breather. And it just lets people refuel a little bit before going in and taking in more information or more kind of emotional information.
Yeah, I totally feel like it helps.
What we're witnessing today is not two incomplete people coming together. We're seeing two people, complete, whole people, fully rooted, established in Christ, fully identifying in Him, coming together in holy matrimony.
You give such good gifts, and you're so good to us. And
one of the techniques that you're using there is you're bringing in the audio before the video comes as a transitionary tool, and it makes it really smooth. And that's such a cool feature that we obviously do for a lot of our weddings, but it's just a great example of it.
I think the official term's like L-cut, J-cut, one of the two. It's an L-cut or a J-cut.
I think it's a J-cut.
I think you're right. I think it's a J-cut. Yeah, basically it's you bring in one set, and both exist. Like sometimes you bring in audio before visual, sometimes you bring in visual before audio. And those are things that just allow us, our brains, to kind of be tricked into feeling like it's smoother, right? Like if two things change at once, it feels more harsh. If one thing changes before the other, it just naturally feels like a little bit more easy to consume.
Yeah, totally. That was a great example of it happening right there.
I'm so blessed to have Anya in my life. Thank you so much for the support that she is, that she challenges me and grows me. And man, I'm so thankful. God, you're so good.
Thank you that you've given me such a beautiful gift of a partner in life. You've made Mateo so wonderfully, and I can't wait to marry him today. It's so exciting.
The biggest issue we ran into with this video, which there's nothing we could really do about it, but I'm kind of kicking myself for it right now, is there's these hanging lights at both of our locations. So at the reception and also at the ceremony, there's like those Edison bulbs. Yeah, it's like those like Costco hanging Edison bulbs. And they look great when you just look at them normally, but the issue is that they're actually not very high quality lights, which is great for the budget, not good for video.
It's good for the budget, it's not good for the video. They look great.
Yeah.
They look great.
They look amazing.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. They get that flicker in the video.
Yeah, and so they have that kind of like pulsing flicker when you shoot in slow motion, which, there's nothing you can really do about it. After the fact, but yeah, you can change your shutters. There's technical things that you can do when you're shooting it, but we didn't know that that was going to be an issue, and so we were kind of stuck with it. And
we know now.
It is what it is.
Yeah, totally.
It is what it is.
That was actually a really important piece there, capturing shots of the family members. So like the dads or the moms or whatever, because that's something sometimes as videographers, you can be so focused on like, oh, I gotta capture, the bride and the groom or whatever. And then you forget that like part of what's really important to them is their family. And so making sure that you capture those shots is so vital.
Yeah. And I think that's something like what I was talking about earlier of like, actually having my own wedding and producing a video for my own wedding. I think that's something that became even more, I kind of like knew that subconsciously before and would try to do that. But I think watching back myself on my own video now, that's something that is like really solidified of how important that actually is. Every person that you have there is there for a specific reason, and because there's history and a relationship and love there, and so you really want to make sure that those people are highlighted, celebrated, and featured.
In you, I have found the most generous, serving, motivated, hardworking, loving, gentle, handsome, and funny man that I have ever known. If you had asked me 5 years ago what I would love in a husband, I would have been describing you. I want to grow old with you. I want to be the one who makes you tea when you're sad, the first one you tell when things go wrong, and the first one who celebrates you when things go right.
So something that I did right here, which I just felt as time went on, helped kind of build the energy, is on the music, you'll actually notice that I have what's called a low pass filter on it. So basically what that does is it takes out all the high end of the music. So you just kind of have this like deep kind of like all the low frequencies are left. And so as it's kind of building, I start releasing that. And so those high frequencies start to come in. And then by the time it actually crescendos, it feels like this like big explosion of music because we've held back so many of those.
Right. It almost feels like the music was like trapped and now it's like breaking free.
Exactly,
yeah, that's very cool.
I choose you today in front of all of our family and friends. I choose you as my partner, my confidant, my Marvel movie buddy, my bandmate, my interior decorator, and most importantly, my husband.
I think it's safe to say that at this point, you're the person that knows me the deepest. You've seen me through some of my darkest seasons and celebrated with me through my greatest accomplishments. You've encouraged me so many times to keep pushing to be better, and have believed in me even when I found it hard to believe in myself. We're a team. Your joy is my joy. Your pain is my pain. I promise to be your partner, and I will do my best to lead out of weakness, to own when I'm wrong, apologize when I've hurt you, and to choose to love you.
So for this audio, I'm actually curious, which did you pull? Did you pull from the mic, or were you pulling from your lapel that was mic?
I actually ended up pulling from the house audio, from the actual soundboard, the mic that he's holding up for me there. Typically, when you have audio situations, typically the quality of a mic, like a handheld mic, is going to be better than a lapel if you are in the right scenario. So what happens a lot of the time, the reason why we lav, even if they have a house system at a wedding, is because often what happens is the officiant's talking, he starts drifting the mic down here, or they're like, they go to, put the mic towards or hold the mic for someone when they're giving their vows, but it like is aimed at their chest rather, like it sometimes it gets messed up, right? Like, they just don't know how to use a mic properly, and that's just part of life, right? Like not everyone's trained in that way. And so we just need to make sure that we have backups, and they're like, labs are great. You get great results from them, and they're awesome backups to have. But typically, you get like a little bit better audio quality when you have an actual handheld mic. Obviously it's way, like the mic itself is way bigger. There's way more circuitry, and like just the actual quality and build quality of the mic is going to be better than a tiny little lapel that you have. But you don't always get the luxury of it being used properly, and so it's not always usable.
To love you the way that Jesus does, even on the days, months, or even years when things get hard. I've known for a while now that you are the girl that I would marry. It's taken some time to get to this moment, and along the way I kept telling myself that one day it would all be worth it.
So you can hear in the background, it's kind of hard to hear for us on these speakers, but at this section, there's like this kick drum that starts coming in with these like really low frequencies. And so I start to like cut everything on that beat to start building that energy. And so we go from this section of where we're just kind of like, it's chill and we're giving the vows and the music's like lightly in the background. It starts to build that anticipation, that tension. And so with that, I'm trying to, with the visuals and the shots that we're using, kind of match that and start to create that visually as well as hearing it with the audio.
Nice.
One day we would be standing on this stage and you would walk down that aisle in your pretty dress and we would say our I do's and then we would spend the rest of our lives together. Guess what? We made it. We're here. And I can say 100% it has all been worth it. As of today, I am yours. You're it for me. You're the only woman who has and will have my heart, and that I can promise you.
It's the first time we kissed, actually.
For real? No, I was like...
I love during these sections of videos when I edit them is like using handheld shots. Just the amount of energy that you get from it is great. Like if we like kind of go back to this section, we like watch all the dancing and stuff, like just the pan ups and stuff like that. Like so we have our establishers and all of that, but then like these kind of shots, we have like the pan up, like it just creates this energy.
And if you feel like you're there with a handheld shot, you feel more like you're there. That's the kind of shot right there. It's like all energy.
And music choice is so important.
Yeah.
Like for wedding films, the whole point is capturing that emotion that people were experiencing on the day of. And so like music choice is one of the most important things when you're doing a wedding edit. This finale, like this kind of like last little crescendo section, like if you didn't have the right music for it, if you didn't have something that just makes you like feel something, like it feels huge, it feels big, it feels like like this epic moment that's happening. Like if you don't have that, you don't get this, like you don't experience those same emotions. And so anyway, that's a huge part of the process, is like making sure that you have the right music, the right songs. And like when we edit stuff, there's a reason why we have a hand in choosing the music, and it's because we know what's going to work and what's going to
I was gonna say, we don't even give the clients usually the choice about what music they're gonna pick. We know we can pick better music than what they could pick. Yeah, totally.
Just because we know how it translates, right? Like we have the experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a cute little moment. That's something that like, stuff like that I think is another example of like what you realize sometimes is fun and important to have in wedding edits that you wouldn't necessarily think of in other scenarios. Like just for me and Anya and who we are, like we just like we're stupid, like we just are sometimes. Like we're really like goofy and silly and just like don't take ourselves very seriously. And so like having a moment like that, I was like, yeah, I absolutely want that in my wedding film, because that just reminds me of us, right? It's not just like a glam shot. And so I think that's something where now I'm like trying to find those moments with couples and just see like, okay, what are the moments that are actually them? And I want to make sure that I feature that.
That's cool.
It is my absolute pleasure and honor and privilege to present to you for the very first time, Mr. and Mrs. Mateo and Anya Allen.
Something that I do a lot in edits now, especially in big, high energy settings, is a lot of the time when we shoot in regular time, or we shoot in slow motion. And something that really helps kind of transition those things is using what's called speed ramps, where basically you're taking a clip and it's at regular time throughout one section of it, and then it either slows down or it's slow and then it speeds up. And so usually I'll use that to help kind of transition. So if you'll notice, like in this section, typically what I have is, even in this last clip before this one that we're looking at right now, there's a clip of us exiting, and it was in regular time, and then it slowed down, and now we're starting in slow motion on this shot, and then you'll notice it'll speed up by the end of it. And so that helps tie clips together and just make sure that it feels like natural cuts when you're actually cutting between them. And you don't always have to do that, but it is something that just adds a little bit on top, especially when you have high energy.
I was sitting in the balcony of our church, and for some reason God put on my heart that I had to pray for the geeky drummer who kept pushing his glasses up with his thumb. I don't know why, but I did that Sunday and every Sunday going forward that he was playing. I didn't understand at the time, but fast forward a few years and a youth camp later, and he was in our life forever and we couldn't get rid of him.
When you find a woman who is patient, faithful, kind, and loving, it's the great.
Something that I've kind of learned as I've like just grown as a filmmaker is that it's so important to just stay in certain moments. I think it's very easy to want to cut too quickly, and I think that's the easier thing to do. But I think something that I've noticed now is like, obviously you want quick cuts when you have these high intensity, high energy sections of your film, but what's really important is contrasting that. What's really important is to have high energy, you also need to have the complete opposite. So
that's a good point.
Yeah, and so that's something that I try to do now is like, for instance, like that last shot, like I just held on it for a good chunk of time as the music's kind of fading out. And that just helps people to like really have that contrast, and also just to have those moments of kind of breathing and to have high energy kind of emotions, to have like those really like impactful moments. You also need the complete opposite. You also need those moments that are quieter, more contemplative, and more subdued.
When you find a woman who is patient, faithful, kind, and loving, it's the greatest gift that anyone can ask for.
So at the end of a video, obviously, like it's a really important part. Do you like how much pre-formulation do you put? Like how much thought do you put into that? Are you thinking like, okay, I want this shot at the end, or on the day of? Are you looking for it, or are you just going through and hoping you just get lucky with one of the shots that's like a good one? Like how much thought do you put into that?
Yeah, so there's always two specific shots that I'm looking for on a day. Obviously, there's a lot of specific shots I'm looking for. There's different pieces that you need to tell a story, but there's two shots that you don't necessarily initially think of that are really important to get on the day of. And one is a title shot, and the other is an ending shot. And so a title shot, obviously, you need some sort of shot to display the name of the couple, to introduce them. At least that's the way that we do it. And so it's really important to think composition-wise, how am I going to get a shot that's going to work well with that? And so that's where like knowing a little bit about like graphic design comes into play, just understanding like negative space and, you know, contrast and all of that. Because if you're going to use like white text, let's say if you have a really bright sky, it's not going to work really well. And so you just need to kind of understand those principles and be thinking about that. And so, you know, stuff that can work for that is having slightly blurred out artistic shots, having a drone shot that's, you know, maybe face down and has like darker values. So you have like grass or just something that has darker values or saturation. So like a white title will show up well on it. Something else would be, you know, having negative space. So if you choose to go with like a black title instead, something that could work is having, you know, the very bottom of a, you know, like a landscape kind of line, like some mountains or grass or what have you, and then having a large area of sky above it with negative space. And then you can put a title in there, like stuff like you're just trying to think like what would frame a title nicely. And then like you said, the other piece is the ending, right? And so you want to make sure that you have a strong ending. And so for this particular one, I wasn't shooting, so I didn't really get to plan that out. So I was just kind of sifting through and trying to find something that worked really well. And I ended up choosing this particular shot because there's that moment where it's on us and then it kind of pans down to this kind of dark spot on the grass. And then that worked well to then do a fade to black and have a title come in or have the kind of like end credits or logo come in. And so for me, that was more of like a practical choice than it was an emotional choice. It wasn't necessarily like something that's symbolic or anything like that. Sometimes you got to opt for what's practical, especially if you're not shooting. You just have to work with what shot. But typically when I am shooting a wedding, that is something that I do like to think about a little bit. Something that works really well is having a couple kind of walking off into the distance or looking off into the distance or something like that. Something that symbolizes, you know, the future, them looking forward, something like that. And so it can be good to just don't overthink it. Like sometimes you can go too meta with things, but you know, it is good to have a little bit of forethought into like, okay, what might this symbolize, and how can that feed into the ending of a video and kind of leaving you on that emotion of like, oh, I'm excited for our future or I'm excited for their future.
I love the backyard scene of the wedding because it was just like a nice space, and actually there was like tiers to the backyard. They got higher and higher, which made it really easy to shoot all the guests because nobody was blocked. Exactly. So that worked out. Like it was a really ideal space. The lighting was perfect, and then actually one of the things that came out of this was probably some of my favorite shots that we've taken with weddings was when we went onto that that hill that was like the golden like orangey was it like wheat or something? Anyways, it was just like the colors were so rich and they complemented the clothing, and like then you had like that overcasty kind of like sunsetty kind of sky that was really nice and soft, and the stuff that came out of that was just like really
and it's crazy
nice.
Because it's like such a like interesting location in the sense of like you'd think that would be in the middle of this like vast landscape, but it's like literally like a public park like
on the side of a mountain.
Yeah, like just off of a school, like seconds away from Anya's house. And it just like is this like one little tiny area, but it looks gorgeous. And
it's a great testimony to how like perspective, like you can be in a terrible location, but if you know how to use your camera and angles, you can make it look much better.
Anything that's not in frame doesn't exist. Right?
Totally. Totally. Oh man, I really enjoyed this wedding. Like overall, I think like you did such a great job because you've put in a ton of time around storytelling and around planning. And did you do anything when it came to like scripting, and like did you give instructions to people to say stuff or to like make sure that there was cohesive narrative lines, or did you just use what came out organically?
I honestly just used what came out organically, and you don't always get the luxury of doing that. The reason why I was comfortable doing that is because I know my family, her family, and I just know that everyone that was giving speeches are like pretty charismatic people that are like super expressive and just like really well spoken. And so that helped a lot, right? Like I knew that there was going to be emotion. I knew that there was going to be just a lot of really heartfelt stuff. And so I felt pretty confident that we would have what was there. And I think for me too, like just because it's my wedding as well, like I just really wanted things to be quite organic. Like I didn't necessarily want to feed people lines, even though that sometimes can really help from a storytelling perspective. Yeah, I think there's something about like just having things be organic. And so that's something that I just specifically wanted for it being my wedding. Yeah, but I was just super happy with like, I think people and who you have in positions like makes a huge difference. And so I think not necessarily like specifically crafting content or anything like that, but I think like who we had in specific positions was very strategic. Yeah. Like having Andrew, who was our officiant, was very like, obviously we love him and he's a close friend. That's like the main reason why he was there, but we also knew that he would do a really good job of, you know, cracking jokes and just being so much fun on the day of, and just, yeah, we knew that he would do a great job of like talking to us and interacting with us, and Cam being the MC. And all the kind of people who gave speeches, we just knew that each one of them would be very, very good at doing that. And obviously being heartfelt and genuine as well. But the people that you have makes a huge, huge difference. I think that's something that I've learned from weddings that I've done, is like, even if you plan content, if you don't have the right people in certain roles, it just doesn't end up the same. There's only so much that you can manufacture, and planning absolutely makes a difference. It absolutely does. But if you have something that just, it comes naturally already, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think being the groom in this scenario, which is obviously a very different scenario for most weddings that I shoot, and involved in the editing
for
process.
Every wedding that you shoot, actually.
Yeah, I've only had 5 weddings, so only the one. Yeah, but obviously unique position for me to be in, and so I think it was really interesting, like being on the editing side of it, and I kind of toyed around with the thought of like paying someone else to do the edit and just like having hands off for the project, but I actually made the decision to take it on myself because of that very reason. Like, how many times do you get to edit your own wedding video? You don't. Like, that's a once in a lifetime thing. And so I thought it would be so cool to be the one that actually is like sifting through that footage, reliving all those memories. And it was absolutely true. Like, it was so cool to edit it and see like the smiles on people's faces, to see all the individual faces that are there. Like, that's something that's really interesting too, is like, I didn't realize how few people you actually get to see on your wedding day. Yeah, totally. And you try to make your best effort to like go to every table and say hello to everyone, but it's just, you have so many things going on, and it's like the day goes by so fast that sometimes you miss it. Like, I didn't even get to talk to my grandparents, which sucks, because like I was so pumped that they were able to be there. But to be able to look back and see shots of them, and like that was so special. Right. And that's something that made me, you know, feel a lot better about, you know, unfortunately not being able to say hi to them during the day. And so that was great to be able to have that, to see those moments again and kind of relive those.
I think that's something too with the highlight video, there's so many cuts. Like, you get to see all that footage that was shot that only a fraction of it makes it in. And that's one of the reasons why with VW, what we do is we deliver full-length ceremony and reception videos, where it's like all the footage collected from that evening around the dancing, the singing, with the speeches, all that stuff. And that's one of the reasons why, is because there's so much other footage that can't fit in the highlight video, or else it wouldn't be a highlight video. But it's like worthy of being delivered right to the client. And so that's a pretty cool thing there to bring up.
Absolutely. Yeah. Totally. Hopefully that gave a little bit of insight into what this process kind of looks like to create a wedding video, and to, from start to finish of actually shooting this thing, to editing it, and finally seeing this come together as a final project.